One of the deepest shocks a narcissist can ever face is the crumbling of a story they've spent their whole life building. It's not just pride being wounded, it's the very ground of their identity splitting wide open. The narcissist doesn't move through life the way most people do. No, the narcissist builds a theater, a stage, a spotlight, and crowns themselves the star of the show. Everything has to orbit around them. Every line spoken has to feed their script. But here's the truth. Every script needs supporting actors. And for a while you played the part. Maybe you didn't even know you were doing it. Maybe you did it just to survive. You defended. You explained. You gave chance after chance, all the while hoping for a breakthrough. But something shifted. Not in the narcissist, in you. The entire script of the narcissist hangs on one word: control. Control of emotion, control of perception, even control of what truth itself means inside the relationship. They twist words. They shrink your wounds. They magnify their own. They bend logic into chains, not to reach understanding, but to keep you in place. And through it all, one aim burns steady, to preserve the illusion that they are untouchable, indispensable, larger than life. Yet illusions only hold power if you keep believing. The moment your eyes clear, the moment you see through the fog and stop feeding the lie, the curtain begins to fall. Not with a bang, not with drama, but with silence, your silence. And for the narcissist, silence is not absence. It is threat. It is exposure. It is the stripping away of the applause they depend on to know they exist. This is why your departure cuts so deep. It's not just that you left. It's what leaving means. It tells the narcissist something they've been running from for years, that the story they tell about themselves is nothing but fiction. At first, they'll fight it. They'll rage. They'll project. They'll blame. But deep under the noise, there's a cold whisper. What if I've been wrong about myself all along? See, every human being lives by story. That's how we know who we are, through memory, through love, through trial and survival. But when the story is built not on truth, but on fantasy, on inflated pride and fragile control, then every crack feels like death itself. And when you step out of the role they gave you, when you refuse to act in their play any longer, the stage doesn't just empty, it collapses. The narcissist may scramble for a new actor, a new audience, another stage. But it's never the same, because you weren't just anyone. You saw them, maybe more than anyone ever had. And when the one who truly saw them leaves, they're left with a darkness more haunting than loneliness. They're left with the suspicion that the whole story never existed at all. And in that hollow space comes not just sorrow, but disorientation. They don't know who they are without your presence, because your presence gave their false self its only meaning. And now your absence reveals the vacancy that was always hiding beneath the mask. This is where their grand theater collapses. Not because you stormed out in anger, but because you walked away with peace, with dignity, without needing them to understand. That quiet dignity dismantled what rage and argument never could. You didn't just end the relationship, you ended the illusion. And that's why silence is thunder. It speaks with a power no ego can deny. And in that echoing stillness, the story shatters. And the narcissist stands face to face with the one reality they've feared above all others. Who they are when the mask falls away. Why cutting off emotional supply destroys manipulation. Emotional detachment. At first, it sounds cold, almost like shutting down. But don't mistake it for numbness. In the world of a narcissist, emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the triumph of it. It's what happens when you refuse to let your heart be their playground anymore. When you stop reacting. When your tears no longer fuel their control. When your anger no longer feeds their ego, when your joy no longer gets twisted into bait. See, the narcissist isn't after attention alone. That would be too small. What they hunger for is your emotional energy. Every sigh, every laugh, every wound, every spark of hope you give, it tells them they still matter. Even your outrage reassures them the cord is still tied, the game is still on. But when you detach, when you reclaim your inner world, quietly, steadily, without fanfare, that's when the grip breaks. Because it's not just that you walked away in body, you walked away in spirit. You stopped playing the role. You stopped waiting for their approval. You stopped contorting yourself just to keep the peace. And in that stillness, you picked up something they were never worthy to hold, your freedom. And make no mistake, detachment doesn't mean becoming stone. It's not bitterness. It's not pretending not to care. That's just survival, and survival still keeps you tethered. True detachment is vision. It's seeing the narcissist exactly as they are, without the mask, without the promise, without your hope trying to rewrite them. You stop giving your empathy to an illusion. You start watching with clarity, with dignity, with peace. And it's right there, in that calm, that the narcissist often panics. Suddenly, they may soften. Suddenly, they may flatter. Suddenly, they may speak words you longed to hear years ago. But don't be fooled. It isn't awakening. It's desperation. Because detachment rewrites the rules. For the first time, they're not the ones setting the terms. Watch closely, and you'll see the scrambling, the testing of your boundaries, the sly attempt to pull on guilt, or nostalgia, or fear. But when you don't give them what they're looking for, not rage, not hope, not pleading, there's nothing left for them to feed on. And that emptiness terrifies them because it means their power has evaporated into thin air. Setting boundaries that protect your future. This is where the miracle begins. What you're doing is more than surviving, it's individuating. It's becoming whole. It's anchoring your life in your own values instead of orbiting someone else's dysfunction. You're standing tall in your own definition of reality. And with every quiet, consistent step, you strip away the only thing the narcissist ever wanted, the right to matter more than you. This doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't even need confrontation. What it requires is steadiness, consistency, a calm that can't be shaken. The narcissist thrives on extremes, adoration or hatred, worship or abandonment. But indifference, that's a language they can't translate. It's a battle they don't know how to fight. And here is the victory. Not in the narcissist changing, not in them breaking down, but in you rising. You stop moving to their rhythm. You start creating your own. And when that happens, something breathtaking occurs. They realize the version of you they controlled is gone forever. You've stepped beyond their reach. You've evolved into someone their tactics can't touch. So when detachment isn't a performance but your actual state of being, when silence isn't forced but natural, the narcissist knows deep inside the game is over. Not because you defeated them with force, but because you didn't need to anymore. You walked away from the stage. You laid down the script. And in doing so, you won a battle they never saw coming. How emotional freedom leads to financial freedom. There's something that rattles a narcissist to the core when you become truly independent. And I'm not talking about just paying your bills on time or keeping a neat schedule. That's surface. What terrifies them is the deeper kind of independence. The kind that grows out of a steady soul, a clear set of values, and a rooted understanding of who you are. That kind of independence isn't just irritating to the narcissist, it exposes the emptiness they've been hiding from themselves all along. Because here's the truth, the narcissist is not self-sustaining. That false identity they parade around is paper thin. It only works if someone else, usually someone empathetic, kind-hearted, steady, keeps reflecting back to them a sense of value. Take away the mirror, and the mask begins to crack. And what comes out from behind it is not strength, but shame. Not confidence, but confusion. Not fullness, but emptiness. And when you reach the point where you no longer play that role, when you stop being their mirror, something extraordinary happens. You become intolerable to them, not because you're wrong, but because you've stopped propping up their illusion. Your independence becomes a revelation, a mirror that shows nothing. A silence that echoes louder than words. Think about it. The narcissist builds a false self like a child builds a sandcastle. It looks grand, it looks impressive, but it's fragile. And the real self, the fearful, neglected, aching self, stays hidden behind those walls. But when you show up with wholeness, when you show up without needing them, without chasing them, without orbiting around them, you shine a light on everything they've tried to bury. You represent what they can't fake. And that presence shakes the ground beneath them. That's why your independence is more than survival, it's revelation. It tells them, without a word, that their control was never complete, that their illusion was never real, that something is missing, not in you but in them, building resilience and long-term strength. Now, you may wonder, does this ever change them? Sometimes, in rare cases, it stirs them to look inward, but most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time, the narcissist doubles down. They lash out, they run, they grasp at control. Anything but face the emptiness within. But listen to me, that's not your concern anymore. Because you've shifted, something inside you has broken free. You no longer orbit their moods. You no longer measure your worth by their reactions. You've tapped into something greater. Call it purpose, call it faith, call it truth. Whatever it is, it's beyond their reach. And once you've tasted that kind of freedom, you can't go back. That's when they begin to crumble. Not because you exposed them in front of the world, not because you waged war against them, but because you quietly stopped feeding the lie. And your silence, your peace, your distance, that's the real earthquake. It forces them to confront the truth they've run from all their life. They were never the source of your strength. You were. You always were. And while that reality unsettles them, it liberates you. Because you've stopped reacting and started creating. You've stopped defending and started building. You've stopped clinging to fragility and begun walking in resilience. Closing wisdom. So let me leave you with this. The day you stop needing the narcissist to recognize your worth is the very day their illusion collapses. And that same day you step into freedom. Not just emotional freedom, but the kind that touches every corner of your life, even your finances, even your future, even your destiny. Because when you no longer live tethered to their approval, you finally discover the richest truth of all. You were never dependent on them. The strength was in you all along. And now, nothing and no one can take it away.